Hello, bruvs. We're back with The Devil and the Jews by Joshua Trachtenberg. The medieval conception of the Jew and its relation to modern anti Semitism. Mind you, this is a 1943 book, so. Part 3 The Jew as Heretic. Chapter 11 Church and Jew. This then was the Jew as medieval Christendom saw him: sorcerer, murderer, cannibal, poisoner, blasphemer, and a siren. The devil's disciple in all truth. But how did such a conception arise? What was its origin, and why did it flourish, particularly in the 13th and 14th centuries? What were the factors that suddenly became operative at that time to make the Jew the black beast of Europe? These are inevitable questions, and we can hardly rest content with the portrayal of the medieval conception of the Jew that evades the responsibility of at least attempting to answer them. It is a striking consideration in this regard that despite the virulent anti-Jewish campaign of the early church, relations between Jews and Christians were not materially embittered. Indeed, the period between the breakup of the Roman Empire and the Crusades, roughly the 6th to the 11th centuries, was comparatively favorable for the Jews. Their unhappy experience in Visigothic Spain after its conversion from Arianism to Catholicism and the wave of expulsions during the 7th century were the result of official antagonism rather than of any strongly felt popular resentment. In general, it may be said that social and economic relations remained good. Some Christians continued for a long time to observe their feasts and festivals on the Jewish dates, and together with Jews. The constantly reiterated fulminations of church authorities against close social and religious intercourse between the two groups, it comes to such a pass that uneducated Christians say that Jews preach better to them than our priests, complained Agobard, against eating and drinking and living with Jews, testified to their unimpaired and cordial intimacy. Even the clergy had to be forbidden from time to time to be friendly with Jews. Reported amicable discussions with Rabbi Simeon Hasid of Treves, Gilbert Crispin, abbot of Westminster in the 11th century, says, "He often used to come to me as a friend, both for business and to see me, and as often we came together, we would soon get talking in a friendly spirit about the scriptures and our faith. In the 10th and 11th centuries, we hear of Jews receiving gifts from Gentile friends on Jewish holidays, of Jews leaving the keys to their homes with Christian neighbors before departing on a journey. In Champagne, where Jews engaged extensively in viticulture and winemaking, they freely employed Gentiles in their vineyards, and the rabbis set aside the ancient ritual prohibition against the use of this wine on the ground that Christians are not idolaters. Christians took service in Jewish homes as nurses and domestics, and Jewish traders dealt in ecclesiastical articles. Business relations were markedly free and close, and there are many instances of commercial partnerships between adherents of the two faiths. Nor did the sporadic dissemination of anti-Jewish propaganda by clerical preachment disturb these generally amicable relations sufficiently to arouse a sense of insecurity and alienness on the part of the Jew. The Jews of France, for instance, called the French language our language, and some eminent scholars of this period bore French names, e.g., Judah Hakohen, who was known as Leontin, and Joseph, known as Bonfils. The use of French names was even more marked in England. In England, where Norman French was the vernacular of the Jews, no less than of the aristocracy, and a similar process of cultural adaptation prevailed throughout Central and Southern Europe. These are assuredly tokens of a cultural and social affinity which could not have flourished in an atmosphere of unrelieved suspicion and hostility. It will not do to idealize this situation. The distinction between the earlier and the later medieval periods, so far as the popular attitude toward the Jew is concerned, must not be overly formalized. Even in the earlier period, of course, there were signs pointing toward the later attitude, but they multiplied very slowly at first and gathered momentum only in the 12th and the succeeding centuries until the slowly changing picture was wholly transformed by that unmitigated hatred of the Jew which we have come to characterize as medieval. Gone were the tolerance and mutual interest expressed in common religious and social observances. Gone, too, was the cordiality of personal association and of business dealings. In their place came suspicion and distrust, mutual fear and loathing, to poison the inescapable contact between Jew and Gentile, thrust together as unwilling neighbors by their common physical and psychical environment. The change in the position of the Jew was affected by a number of factors, notably by the impairment of his legal status under the evolving feudal system, culminating with the abrogation of the right of Jews to bear arms and the introduction of the concept of chamber serfdom, Kammerknechtschafft, subjection directly to the emperor in the 13th century. By the economic decline he suffered with the development of European society and the emergence of a favored Christian merchant class, by the social upheavals and the deterioration of his social status consequent upon the First Crusade. But these factors all operated against the backdrop of church policy, which determined public opinion and therefore juridical, and commercial practice as it affected the Jew, and which must in the end bear the major responsibility for the transformation of the popular attitude toward the Jew. The Christianization of Europe was a slow process and quite superficial at first. England did not become Christian until the 7th century. The Germanic tribes, Saxony and Bohemia, not until the 9th. Scandinavia and Poland not until the 10th, while Prussia and Hungary held out a century longer. It took time for Christian dogma to sink into the popular consciousness and for the new mythology not merely to supplement the older, as it did at the outset, but actually to supplant it. By the 10th or 11th century, this process was nearing completion. In the 11th century, the papacy was still faced with the task of subjecting its own clergy to the rule of Christian doctrine, as in the important matter of clerical celibacy, for example. Europe was assimilating the Catholic version of the Christ legend and its concomitant, the theological Jew. Perhaps here lies the explanation of the seeming ineffectuality of church and preachment during the period of its establishment in northern and western Europe. The Jew of Christian legend bore so little resemblance to the real Jew whom the West knew. He was entirely the creation of theological thinking, an exotic plant that did not speedily take root in the newly converted lands. The European peasant had to learn, and he learned slowly, that he was expected to equate the theological Jew with the neighbor whose friendship he enjoyed, and with whom he worked and dealt. The strange creature had been invented in the eastern half of the Roman Empire during the early struggle of the Church to establish itself. In the effort to prove its superiority to the Judaism it sought to displace, it resorted to the common trick of disputants, mudslinging. It was not content to brand Judaism as a decadent, superseded faith or the Jews as the murderers of the Son of God and the rejected of God Himself. I thought they were the chosen ones. Characterizations that in themselves carried serious implications. The early church established the Christian attitude toward the Jew by antedating the rejection of the Jews and the emergence of the church to the beginning of revealed history, and by emphasizing the position of Abraham as the father of many nations, of whom only one, and that themselves, was chosen, so that the Jews at long last stood revealed as impostors and frauds, con- contumacious pretenders to an election that was never rightfully theirs. The campaign of slander piled up so many fabulous accounts of Jewish venality and treachery that it became a commonplace to attack Jews for that self-same odium generis humani with which Christian society itself had so recently been tagged by pagan detractors. The attitude fostered by the church is epitomized in a 5th century legend of a town in Minorca which, by a miraculous divine privilege, was immune from the presence of snakes, wolves, foxes, and Jews. Any member of these species who happened to enter the town was eliminated by a heathen heaven sent thunderbolt. What were they? Any member of these species: snakes, wolves, foxes, and Jews. Oh, Jesus Christ. This Jew, whom the early church displayed before its adherents as the authentic article, is not a human being at all, as Parks has observed. He is a monster, a theological abstraction of superhuman malice and cunning, and more than superhuman blindness. He is rarely charged with human crimes, and little evidence against him is drawn from contemporary behavior or his action in contemporary events. Commenting upon the envenomed diatribes of the 4th century preacher Chrysostom of Antioch, Parks remarks, "It is evident that Chrysostom's Jew was a theological necessity rather than a living person. If he looked different from the actual Jews living in Antioch, it was part of the malice of the Jew, one of the snares of the devil, set to catch the unwary Christian. Once this point had been firmly driven home, one can hardly blame the populace of early Mediterranean Christendom for failing to discern the distinction between the theological Jew and the actual Jew, or for reacting violently upon the clearly implied suggestion of this delineation. The writings and sermons of the militant leaders of the church inevitably whipped up public opinion and led to wild attacks upon the Jews, which these same leaders often felt bound in all conscience to deprecate. Pope Gregory the Great, toward the end of the 6th century, was frequently fair to the Jews in practice, yet he did not hesitate to attack them in bitter terms as outcasts whom he regarded with horror and loathing. It is a curious picture, says Parks, to think of Gregory turning from the dictation of one of his more flowery denunciations of their diabolical perversity and detestable characteristics to deal with his correspondence, and writing to a bishop who has only been carrying these denunciations into logical action to remind him that it is by love and charity alone that we can hope to win them, and that even when they do not wish to be converted, they must be treated with justice and allowed the undisturbed use of the rights which the law allows them. Secular legislation naturally followed the church's cue. All the legislation of the Christian empire, even when designed to protect their lawful rights, is couched in language of abuse and contempt, language singularly unsuited to impressing upon the recipients of the legislation the sincerity of the legislators. Herein lies the paradox of Christian policy toward the Jews. Bitterly condemned and excoriated, they were yet to be tolerated on humanitarian grounds, and indeed preserved on theological grounds as living testimony to the truth of Christian teaching. Yet the impulse to punish the hatred or the hated and to convert by all means the unregenerate constantly warred against the moral and dogmatic scruples which, at best, animated only a small minority of the more highly placed and responsible clergy. The center of Christian influence shifted north and westward, as did that of Jewry, and new populations began to imbibe the lesson which the Church had so well instilled in its eastern reaches. For a while, the Jew was a human being wholly disparate from the figure thus offered as his true representation. But, as has been suggested by the beginning of the second millennium of the Christian era, the teaching of the Church was making itself felt. The unreal Jew of older times still dominated Christian thought, and as time went on, so well was the lesson learned that it became increasingly difficult for the people and their clerical mentors to keep him separate from his real counterpart. The traditional character ascribed to him was transferred to his contemporary activities and being, and whereas in the past the Jew of legend was the butt of Christian ridicule and hatred, in the later period the legend expanded to include the contemporary Jew and all his works. This is a must read. Should be in the education curriculum. Hello, brovs. Brov and brov and brov. So Christianity is a Trojan horse. No, I just think it's saying that Christianity and Judaism have been fighting since the Middle Ages. I'm not sure they're blaming Christianity for anti Semitism, but Moses is pissed, Bubba. The paradox persisted and doomed to failure the occasional efforts of both the state and the church, conceived as the secular and spiritual organs of Christendom, to protect the Jews. The Jewry law of King Wenceslaus II for Brunn, promulgated in the year 1268, clearly expresses the contradiction. Because of the crime which once their fathers committed against our Lord Jesus Christ, the Jews are deprived of the protection of their natural rights and condemned to eternal misery for their sins. Oh yeah, I guess there was that part where the Jews were blamed for crucifying Christ. Although they resemble us in human form, we differ from them by our holy Christian faith. Therefore, Christian goodness teaches us to cast off our harshness and protect our faith from them, but we must respect their humanity and not their unbelief. I don't know if they're polar opposites. It says they were bros until the 2nd century of the Christian reign. The logical inconsistency of this was too apparent to escape any but the dullest minds. From the side of the church, we have the repeated and often strongly advanced defense of the Jews by popes and ecclesiastical councils. Faith must be kept with the Jews, declared the Council of Bourges in 1236, and no one may use violence toward them. For the church protects the Jews, since, as it is written, she desires not the death of a sinner. One would have to seek far indeed for a more humane counsel than that of Innocent IV, if the Christian religion were to give careful heed and rightly analyze by use of reason how inhuman it is and how discordant with piety for it to afflict with many kinds of molestations and to smite with all sorts of grave injuries the remnant of the Jews to whom left as witnesses of his saving passion and of his victorious death, the benignity of the Savior promised the favor of salvation. It would not only draw back its hands from harming them, don't hit them, bruv, but as a show of piety and for the sake of reverence of Christ, it would at least extend the solace of human kindness to those whom it holds, as it were, in tribute. But the essential non sequitur of the official attitude vitiated all such appeals to Christian virtue. This very statement was elicited by the complacency, if not complicity, of the Archbishop of Vienna in a series of brutal excesses perpetrated against the Jews of his diocese in 1247. The Constitutio Pro Judaeus, expressly forbidding violence against the Jews, was endorsed by successive popes 10 times from its issuance in 1120 until 1250. In the preamble to his reissue of 1199, Innocent III declared, "Although the Jewish perfidy is in every way worthy of condemnation, nevertheless, because through them the truth of our own faith is proved, they are not to be severely oppressed by the faithful. Even the Pope, hedges the contradiction, sticks in his throat. The contradiction sticks in his throat. They are not to be severely oppressed. It was this same Innocent III who sponsored acutely oppressive legislation against the Jews. The secular authorities also sought to protect the Jews for their own selfish ends. The Jews were a convenient source of funds. The bishops and ecclesiastical rulers affected by similar secular as well as ecclesiastical interests usually supported the official policy of non-violent toleration. But popes, kings, nobility, bishops all had little influence over the populace, which had at long last swallowed the theological conception of the Jew whole and minus the accompanying theological sophistry. The greatest direct influence upon the people was exerted by the lesser clergy, both secular and monastic, who were, if anything, in advance of their flock in ignorance, fanatical piety, and superstition. Nor was the clergy particularly responsive to the will of the hierarchy, even in more vital matters of doctrine and practice. The first massacres of Jews were directly inspired by clerical preaching, and the murderous bands were sometimes led by priests. William of Newbury, describing the attack upon the Jews of York in 1190, says, "And there were not lacking among the mob many clergymen, among whom a certain hermit seemed more vehement than the rest. The deadly work was urged on before the others by that hermit from the Stratensian canonry mentioned above, who was busily occupied with the besiegers, standing in his white garment and frequently repeating with a loud voice that Christ's enemies ought to be crushed." The later accusations of ritual murder and profanation of the host found their origin and chief support in many of the local clergy, who also readily accepted and propagated the charge of well poisoning. The repeated denials on the part of popes and church councils of the truth of such rumors were without effect, so long as the overzealous clergy stood between them and the people. Were there ever actual well poisonings? I assume there were. This then was the general background of the medieval conception of and attitude toward the Jew. A church fostered contempt and hatred which had sunk so deeply into the public consciousness that not even the highest authorities of church and state were able to ameliorate it. A contributory factor in fixing this background in the public mind also deserves some comment. The church employed the term Jew as all-inclusive, embracing the entire people, past, present, and future. The principle of corporate responsibility which prevailed during the Middle Ages, taxes were levied on the corporation as a unit, fines or other punishment for the offense of a member were exacted of the entire community or nationality, lent added force to the traditional generalization. This principle was not confined to the Jews or to the Middle Ages, but it affected the Jews with a particular severity. The superstitious crimes that so strongly influenced the medieval conception were considered to be the actions of the Jews and not of this or that Jew, and the entire community suffered the penalty for them. The effect of this principle upon the imaginary picture of the Jew, already clearly delineated, may readily be conceived. Indeed, it came to embrace a vast area of official Jewish activity. Blood for magical or ritual purposes was procured and distributed at the instance of an official body. Bags of poison were dispatched from one community to others. The profanation of wafers and of images was believed to be a solemn communal act. How similar were these wafers to the ones that they have now? The decisive turning point in medieval Christian Jewish relations came with the First Crusade. It was as though the period of indoctrination had reached its peak, and the carefully nurtured and stored up venom had burst its frail restraints and gushed forth in a torrent that overwhelmed Christian and Jew alike. The crusade, launched in 1063 against the Moors of Spain, constituted a curtain raiser for the main act of 1096. The armies that poured into the Spanish marches massacred Jews indiscriminately in the name of the crusade. What more comprehensible than that the passion generated against infidels should seek an outlet wherever unlucky non-Christians chanced to be found? To the masses, the Jew was the worst infidel of all, the Christ killer in person. The official distinction was transparently futile. The First Crusade resulted in widespread massacres throughout Western Europe, usually carried out by the bands of pauperes, inspired by religious fanaticism. It is significant that there is no record of ill treatment of Jews anywhere in Europe by the great nobles of the official army. 3 priests, Peter the Hermit, Volkmar, and Gottschalk, were responsible for arousing the masses against the Jews and leading the marauding bands. The Moops. In general, the civil and ecclesiastical authorities sought to shield the Jews, but their efforts were futile. Even the bishops were powerless against the incitement of these priests, nor did the threat of excommunication deter the mobs. In a number of instances, bishops who had invited Jews within the protecting walls of their castles were forced to deliver them up to gangs led by their own clergy. The temper of the times may be discerned in an incident which occurred at Mainz, where the destruction of the Jewish community followed upon the decision of a pet goose to accompany her mistress on the crusade. The crowd seized upon this as a divine endorsement of the crusade, and forthwith fell upon and slaughtered the Jews. So wait, a pet goose? I don't get it. No marked break followed immediately upon the crusade. It is true, both groups sought to resume the relationship that had been so savagely interrupted, and except for sporadic outbreaks, contacts remained close and cordial for a while longer, but the effects of this experience upon both Jews and Christians never quite wore off. Like a severely debilitating disease, which, even when cured, leaves its telltale scars upon the body of the patient, the First Crusade struck deeply into the spirit of Jewry, leaving irredeemable fear and anxiety, a sense of insecurity and desolation that corroded its inner life and its relations with the now dreaded Christian world. As for the Christians, the passions then unloosed were not again confined through many centuries. Through the social and economic aspects of Europe, though the social and economic aspects of Europe might permanently alter and improve, the fanaticism that had been given free rein remained to plague the peace and security of the continent. Minorities were hounded and decimated, not least among them the Jews, and The ancient hostility, generalized and in a measure abstract, underwent a process of elaboration and particularization that produced a host of newfangled superstitions and accusations and fastened, oh man, upon the world a conception of the Jew that has not yet been eradicated. Mind you, this book was written in 1943, but with the current level of Jew hatred out there, it's kind of still pertinent. Infidel or Heretic will be read next time. That seems to be much longer. 188. Yeah, that's like 17 pages. Definitely not reading that now. The Moors. All right. That's all, bros. Anybody got any final statements? 75% of the comments on this series of readings are generally anti-Jew, even though this book was published for the Anti-Defamation League of the Brith by the Jewish Publication Society of America. So most people are thinking it's an anti-Jew trope, but it's actually defending them from the accusations. Thanks, Bob. Bobby Barrow. Or is it Burrow? Burrow. Too bad I need to spit. It's weird. I looked this book up on in old newspapers. I could really find nothing about it. There was a few mentions of Trachtenberg, though. Trachtenberg didn't live very long. I think he was only in his 50s when he died. He was born in London in 1904 and died in 1959. And he only wrote 2 books, as far as I know. This book and Jewish Magic and Superstition, 1939. I guess he did write a second one, Consider the Years. I don't know what that's about. The first pronunciation was right. Bobby Barrow. Even Nietzsche was controlled opposition. You really think Nietzsche was controlled opposition? With a fucking mustache like that, he's not controlled opposition. I don't believe Nietzsche was controlled by anybody. Well, according to the one book I have on Nietzsche, he was Wagner's little bitch, but that's neither here nor there. I do mean to read that book at some point on the channel. I've already read it, and I was like, I thought it was a bunch of butter churning bullshit, but since I don't really know much of Nietzsche's life outside of what I've read in books, I don't know if it's accurate. Who's the writer? Joachim somebody or other? But he claimed that Nietzsche used to wash Wagner's underwear, and he was in love with Wagner's wife, and all kinds of bullshit. But who knows? Was he a degenerate? Well, I believe back then they are all like, all those people were banging hookers. Don't they claim that he had syphilis and that's what really killed him? The phenomenon of anti-Semitism is of long standing and one that unhappily still endures. Its roots are many and complex. One blatant strand of anti-Jewish prejudice, its unique demonological character can be traced to medieval origins. The demonic Jew was born of a combination of cultural and historical factors peculiar to Christian Europe in the late Middle Ages. What's up, Robs? the light. What kind of shit's going on there? I looked at this the other day. This dude's like suckling from a pig. The devil's riding. He's standing. He's got goat legs. Why is he holding that tail like that? I don't like it. Don't like it at all. What do you got? Oh, man. Oh. That was the short reading I needed. Yeah, I'm still getting comments on the first video. What the fuck is wrong with these people? I think this book's getting close to surpassing Bisexual Napoleon for the most hateful comments. People telling me to dig deeper. I'm like, dude, I found this book at a book sale. I wasn't seeking it. I don't look for books. Books look for me on live television. And let's go through some of these comments. From the first video. This is the conception that where am I at? Who's this idiot? Schultz. Can we get to the comments? There they are. 90 comments so far in the first video. Jimmy Page. I wish he would comment. And there's the Nietzsche quote. What? You chose virtue and took pride in your virtue, and yet you leer enviously at the advantages of those without scruples. But virtue involves renouncing advantages. Inscription for an anti-Semite's door. He also said to shoot them, but we're not allowed to say that. What's this guy's name? Jerry Richendaler, 7096. The Sephardic and Ashkenazim branches of Judaism are interesting study in European history. I gave that a thumbs up, because I'm sure it is interesting. There's a reason why they are viewed this way. I gave that a thumbs down just to fire them up. Let's hear the reason. Do you want all 109 or just the over 1,000 individual examples? Yes, everyone. Bobcat, most comments are auto-censored when they include the information you are requesting. Right. 76 years of savage inhumanity and the last 2 years of genocide against Palestinians should give your brain some facts. So you are bitter that Israel won wars and thus you became anti-Semitic. Maybe you could read the transfer agreement. I'm not going to. I mean, if I find the book, I might. But if it's going to get me kicked off here, I'm not going to read it. Because I do have the book that people want, the Henry Ford book. But I'm not reading that because I guarantee that it'll probably get me, I don't know, maybe someone else has already read it. I just don't want to get kicked off here for reading something. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. How many Zions are there? If you could do that, it would be great. Yeah, I don't have that book. I've looked for it, but I haven't seen it. Although I thought I did. Read that in conjunction with The International Jew by Henry Ford. Now that's a ride. Soon the protocols are going to be fully implemented. What is WEF? WEF. This guy's plotting an overthrow of society, but he uses abbreviations. Oh, that's right. The protocols of the learned elders of Zion was supposedly written hundreds of years ago, but it was actually, they mentioned William McKinley's assassination. The Jews worship the devil. I don't actually know what they worship. I have it on PDF and the Toronto Protocol. I'm good. I'm good, bro. Many people are aware of it now, and I think it's going to backfire big time. Bobcat, I don't think the protocols are fake. Seeing as though every single thing that is said is actually happening, please at least read them on your own and see for yourself. Might be surprised. They're obviously faked. Written in like 1912. Like number 55. Oh, that's right. That was the 55th like. How many do I have now? 58. Wow. I've gotten 3 more. Oh, special. There it is. Wow. Wow. Maybe you could read the transfer agreement. We've already discussed. I'm not reading it unless I find it for cheap. I like the way you answered that. Semi-literate. I knows you are then a smart man. Liked and subbed. ADL book. Into the trash it goes. No way. I believe this book is worth some money. Let me look it up, see what it's worth. Don't look, in case personal info shows up. Devil, Jews, Trachtenberg. Trachtenberg. Actually, I was thinking about buying an earlier copy of this book. I believe this book's got some good value. The Devil and the Jews and Jewish Magic and Superstition by Trachtenberg. 2 books. Those are $40. It's a good cover. And that's kind of the same thing, ain't it? It is the same thing. They just edited it. Celebrate however you want. Thanks, buddy. I was waiting for this moment in time for you to tell me that. What's this? Paperback edition. I'm not paying $24 for it. This one, I'm interested in. Is that in a slipcase? Let's look at it, bro. Any book that pisses people off, I'm all for it. Look at that. It's great. Oh, it's printed by Yale. What does this say? Is that part of the dust jacket? What is it? It's cute. Alright. What's this? Is it like propped up on something? What is that? What is it, Bubba? Those little hands holding it up? That's cute. Oh, there's more. There it is. New Haven, Yale University Press. All rights reserved. 3rd printing. So it's not even. So it's the 1st edition, 3rd printing. Yeah, well, it's not a true first then, Bubba. Damn you. Still like it. I'm still not paying $67. See. Devils, women, and Jews. Hey, there's one on the devil, women, and Jews. Oh no. Now we can, not only can we piss off the bros, now the chicks will be pissed too. Of God, the devil, and the Jews. What else is of God, the devil, and the Jews? Devils, women, and Jews. Wonder what it's gonna say. Some crazy shit, I bet. Jews, horns, and the devil. An illustrated history by Anton Felton. $75. Felton. Alright, let's go check some sold ones. See how much this is sold for. Look down. Look away. You must look away. The first sold for $70. 35, 39.50, I mean. $12. See, this book's worth at least 15 or $20. I'm not selling it, but it's worth 15 or 20. I will sell this one though. I do have a copy of this signed. I found it today. Don't cry, bruv. Whoa, what happened? I guess that's back to the ADL book. Into the trash it goes. No, it's not going into the trash. So many people fall for the evil spirits schemes. Hard to watch. Gaslighting 101. See, I never understand what that even means. Am I a Zionist? Do you even know what a Zionist is? Do you even know who founded Zionism? Yo! I read a book on Herzl here, who was the founder of Zionism. And he wasn't even religious. He founded Zionism. And this is not like an exactly unknown secret. Yeah, Herzl, but it's not spelled like Herzl, like a hearse and Nestle Crunch. It's Herzl. Herzl. And yeah, he wasn't even religious, so he just wanted to found a state for Jewish people. Comics. Bro, if you don't stop abusing that book. So what does gaslighting even mean by posting this book? I just don't know what this means. Is this trying to tell you that they're gaslighting you to be you're the bad guy? Or the Jew is the good guy? Is that what they're saying mean by gaslighting? I never understand that stupid term. I know very little. Well, I know one thing you don't know is the lowercase font. Anti-parasitic. This is a good quote. And yet here you are, buddy. And yet you're bottom feeding the comment section. Oh, so sad. Anti-Semitism is very wrong. Ignorance. And this is where people really get pissed. I don't even know why. 90% of these comments I never get. I have to come to read them. What is a Semite? Only is you're a Semite. Only is you are a Semite. And like our good friend commented, what's a Semite? I wouldn't hold your breath for his answer. You know, it's weird. I worked for a Jewish guy back in the day, and he told me, because he was talking about anti-Semitism and the slur for Jews, and so I asked him who the K applied to, and he goes, all of them. And he used to eat bitter honeys, but he told me, he goes, all of them. Arabs are Jews too, and I was like, all right, buddy. So I can't really say I know much on the Jewish religion, but my boss was Jewish, and he claimed that all the people living over in the Middle East are all Jews. That was his explanation. So you are against noticing and pattern recognition, which is a sign of high IQ. It's a Semitic language speaking person. Super simple to understand. Do you want a list, though? Hey, wait, this guy's in the chat, isn't he? Matzo balls. Or was, not today, but was. A Semitic language speaking person includes Lebanese, Assyrians, Arabs, Jews, Habesha. What's a Habesha? Ancient Semites would include Phoenicians, Akkadians, Canaanites, Amorites, Arameans, and Ugarites. I wrote out a short list of modern and ancient Semites to the dude above you that also asked. Thank you, matzo ball. Is that like Baal, the devil? So this guy's matzah, like a matzo ball, but he's matzo ball. You can cease holding your breath. I laid out the answer to the dudes above you. Lol. You weren't being asked, matzo ball. What a free will. Crikey. Alonzo Law ignorance is not having pattern recognition. If there was nothing there, the stereotypes would not exist. Ignorance is not understanding behavior, can and is often passed down through generations. The genocide of Palestinians has shown the reality. The massacre of the innocents, Herod. Yes, be course. Yahweh is original, a storm god with Israel as he domain, so they are his people. There was many tribal gods spread over. Remember, before they came to Israel, they was Canaanite and worship Baal and Moloch. Hey, there it is, Baal. Moloch. Jews worship Yahweh, Baal. YouTube videos. Yahweh is Baal. Or is it Baal? Anti-parasitic. Believing your God's chosen, and when your Messiah returns, every non-Jew will be a slave to you is so wrong and ignorant. Thank you, Joey. Joey. Jojo Y1P. Jojo Y1P. Semite is Middle Eastern. Mammon. Is that like the mammoths? The Utah mammoths? Still can't get over that cat's face. He's like, you motherfuckers are reading this? He's pissed. He's a kittenite. I didn't want all 109 examples. I was interested in even one example, but this guy claims they were all censored. There's a reason why they are viewed this way, even though it's in the book. Money monad. The hell is that? What's a monad? Is it like a gonad, but more of them? Monad to gonad. Don't look at this. I gotta find the current channel. Trachtenberg. I wonder how much Jewish superstition is. Jewish superstition. Three of them sold. $125. That's the one I have right there. Hell yeah, Bubba. Where is that book? Gotta put it back on the shelf. Jewish Magic and Superstition. I actually have 2 copies of it. That's another copy I have. That one's only 13, but maybe this one is a first edition. I don't think it is. Could be. Checking your browser before you access eBay. Yeah, I'm a fucking see original listing. Maybe this is a first. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. Very good. Book is in very good shape. Strong spine. Hinges are in very good shape. No breakage, no loose pages. The pages are clean with no markings. Yeah, that's the one I have. A commentary classic. Maybe it's a first. That makes me want to know what other people are selling theirs for. Yeah, I couldn't believe it was still at the sale when I saw it. I was like, what's this? And then I found a second one. Jewish magic. This kind of has creases right there, buddy. I would call that not very good. Call that good. Good. Yeah, that guy's selling his for 125 as well. What's this? See, I think that is the true first right there. This other one is not a true first. This one's 925 bucks. Not paying that. Whoa, whoa. It's got a. Is that a flower or a star? That one's got. Wait. Oh, it's a paperback. I thought that was the hardcover with the dust jacket. It's not, though. There it is. 150. 450. Come on now. What year is it? 69? 1939. They keep saying that. 79.90. What's this? Oh, same book. What's his other book? Jewish myth, magic, mysticism. All right. Consult my library. You're live. I was live before too, buddy. See you later, Bobby. Bye, Bubba. Or are you talking to the other Bobby? Bobby. This book is kind of crispy, quite honestly. To my parents, Deborah and Simon Trachtenberg. See, mine's much better condition than that guy's. For whatever reason, at the one book sale, which is Bookstock, there are a lot of Jewish books, and I assume that a lot of the people that are running the Bookstock are Jewish, so that's why there's a lot of Jewish books. But I go to the tables, and there's usually nobody at the tables, and I grab a bunch of great stuff. Jewish tarot and stuff like that. It's crazy. I didn't even know they had tarot. What's that say? The Jewish synagogue? Oh, the legend of Jewish sorcery. We'll read this book at some point. I'm probably going to have to read this copy because I don't know if... No, I'm not going to break the spine on this thing. Don't really want to break the spine on this one either, but... All right, Robs. Anybody got anything else to say? That's a no. Goodbye, Robs.